On the grey morning of May 8, 2025, something unusual stirred the cold air above Moscow. President Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso arrived onto Vnukovo Airport in Moscow to participate in Russia's Victory Day celebrations. The world watched the images, but few understood what was happening behind the scenes. Traore had arrived like a wartime leader on foreign soil, alert, armed, unshaken. He did not come to Moscow as a guest, he came as an equal. From West Africa to Eastern Europe, lines are shifting, and standing at the center of it all was a young soldier president in a red beret.
Wow, like seriously? The more I watch this, our young president, Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso, the more I fall in love with him, I swear. See determination, boldness to make his country a better place. Like, I am deeply shocked. This is getting more interesting. I devote most of my time this very period to watch this very president because he's a young man. I'm even older than him. So I begin to wonder if at his age, this guy is, doing all this and the whole world respecting him, then it worth watching because we need such motivation here in Africa. Not all these people that are just wasting our time in Africa in the name of democracy, especially this country, Nigeria. Like I'm trying to compare, but the gap is so, oh my goodness, the gap is so, my God, Ibrahim Traore, I'm loving you more. Guys, there are things that media is not showing us. They are not telling us. Television, BBC, CNN, Al Jazeera, there are things they are not telling us. That is why I bring this video I just came across so that you can enjoy with me and actually see some of the happy moments of Ibrahim Traore in Russia. Please watch this video to the end. And now, let me know your thoughts. Let me know what you think about Ibrahim Traore and the hope of Africa through President Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso. Let's go.
Moment 1. Landing like a lion. On the grey morning of May 8, 2025, something unusual stirred the cold air above Moscow. President Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso arrived onto Vnukovo Airport in Moscow to participate in Russia's Victory Day celebrations. He traveled aboard a Russian presidential aircraft, specifically the Ilyushin Il-96-300. This aircraft is part of the Russian government's VIP fleet and is typically used for transporting high-ranking officials, including President Vladimir Putin himself. The symbolism was loud, meant for Washington, Paris, and Brussels to hear. When the cabin door opened, the cameras clicked. There he was, tall, calm, dressed not in a suit, but in full olive-green military uniform. The red beret of his paratrooper regiment sat firmly on his head, a pistol at his hip. Steps were slow, controlled. He walked like a soldier, not a politician. No velvet-lined limousine waited. Only the quick clicks of Russian and international press cameras. The president of the transition arrived this Thursday in Moscow. But the reality was anything but modest. Traore had arrived like a wartime leader on foreign soil, alert, armed, unshaken. He did not come to Moscow as a guest, he came as an equal. Behind this quiet theater was something deeper. In a time of escalating global tensions, when NATO and Russia eye each other across fractured lines, Vladimir Putin had chosen to fly in a 36-year-old African revolutionary, not as a courtesy, but as a signal. Burkina Faso was no longer under France's shadow. Ibrahim Traore had become a priority. His visit wasn't about a photo op, it was about power realignment. Why? Because Traore is more than a president. He is a symbol of resistance to neocolonialism, to puppet regimes, foreign interference. In just 2 years, he has survived 18 coup plots, broken ties with France, and declared sovereignty over Burkina Faso's resources. Now he was stepping foot into Moscow, not to beg, but to build something new. A new chapter in African diplomacy, one no longer dictated by the West. His arrival was diplomatic symbolism, and it sent one clear message: Africa is shifting, Traore is leading, and the world is watching. Moment 2. Uniform of defiance. Traore's clothing sent a clear message before he even said a word. He didn't wear a formal suit. Instead, he showed up in military clothes that stood for revolution. His shirt had ribbons on the chest, Burkina Faso flag badges, and shiny medals, which had gold shoulder decorations. On one arm, he wore a red, green, and yellow band showing pride in his country. People noticed he even had a gun in a belt holder at his waist, something that had already made headlines when he showed up with it at a meeting in Ghana. In Moscow, the gun showing under his jacket became a sign of how bold he was. In a world of well-dressed politicians, Traore showed up like a soldier, making it clear he wasn't there to fit in, but to stand his ground. Moment 3. The son of Africa in the crowd. As Traore stepped out onto Red Square during the big Soviet Victory Day event, people quickly gathered around him. Africans living in Russia and curious locals pushed and squeezed to catch a look at him. Within minutes of his arrival, dozens of people were trying to shake his hand, take pictures, or put on him the black and orange St. George's ribbons that stand for Russia's victory. One moment, almost funny because of how excited people were, showed him standing calmly while a group of fans rushed to take selfies. The joy was spreading fast. Taxi drivers stopped their cars to wave, and even old Russian soldiers gave him a sharp salute and a big smile. For many people watching, this strong and down-to-earth West African captain brought something fresh and powerful to the usual Victory Day events. Moment 4. Handshakes at a Kremlin banquet. That evening, Traore sat in a special seat at a fancy Kremlin dinner. Photographers later shared a picture of a smiling Vladimir Putin shaking Traore's hand after a dinner in honor of the heads of foreign delegations attending the upcoming Victory Day celebrations. The two had met at a formal meal with old Soviet-style caviar and vodka, a big difference from the tough, basic life Traore faced back home. That night, the serious military leader became one of Putin's respected guests, sitting close to other global figures like China's Xi Jinping. The beauty and luxury of the Kremlin dining room felt worlds apart from the rough military bases in Ouagadougou. The photo of Traore and Putin raising their glasses to friendship quickly spread online, marking a new chapter in Russia-Africa ties. Moment 5. Laying a wreath of solidarity. On May 9th, Victory Day dawned under clear skies. Traore joined the procession of world leaders at the tomb of the unknown soldier in the Alexander Garden. In grim silence, he and the other presidents and prime ministers laid wreaths on the Kremlin wall. In official bulletins, he was noted to have joined world leaders at a ceremony outside the Moscow Kremlin and solemnly laid a wreath in memory of the World War II heroes. Cameras caught the scene. In front of Stalin's mausoleum and towering red square flags, Traore bowed his head, with heads of state from China, Zimbabwe, and elsewhere. For Traore personally, it was a moment of historic resonance. A fellow veteran of anti-imperialist struggle, paying respect to Russia's war dead, as Russian officials proudly emphasized. Moment 6. Brother leaders on parade. As the famous Victory Day military parade rumbled by in Red Square, Traore stood on the reviewing stand beside Putin, Xi, Mnangagwa, Zimbabwe, Bas, Palestine, and others. The sight of Burkinabe camouflage amid this distinguished company was widely remarked upon. Burkina's state news noted with pride that Traore walked behind the grand array of tanks and troops, witnessing as Russian soldiers marched past with T-90 tanks and Sukhoi jets overhead. When African heads were conspicuously absent, the Burkinabe presence seemed even larger. Analysts pointed out the symbolism. Here was a leader who used to be a rebellious army captain, now an honored guest among the globe's powerful. It underscored how dramatically Traore had transformed Burkina Faso's international standing from a remote Sahel state to a visible force on Moscow's stage. Moment 7. A Russian university's royal welcome. The morning after Victory Day, Traore visited Moscow State Technological University to give a talk, another surprise stop on his schedule.
President Burkina Faso, Ibrahim Traore.
He was welcomed warmly in typical Russian style. African students at the university started singing and dancing as he arrived. 2 students in uniform came forward with a traditional welcome, offering him a round piece of bread placed on a decorated cloth with a small bowl of salt. In one unforgettable photo, Traore is seen watching as the bread is handed to him, a kind gesture that has been part of Russian hospitality for hundreds of years. The official report said African students welcomed him with songs and dances, and the university prepared bread and salt to honor his visit. It was a powerful scene, a soldier from Burkina Faso being welcomed like a hero in the middle of Russia, showing friendship through culture and tradition. Moment 8. Strategic talks in the Kremlin. Later on May 10th, Traore sat down with President Putin in the Kremlin. This was one of the most closely watched moments of the trip. Briefings had promised discussions on strategic issues between the 2 heads of state. No formal communique was made public. Insiders said the agenda included security and defense cooperation, a topic long anticipated by many observers. Reuters had reported in August 2023 that Moscow's deputy defense minister had already visited Ouagadougou to explore possible military cooperation with Traore's regime. Among the areas discussed were training of Burkinabe troops, even pilots, in Russian academies. Now, in Moscow, Traore had a chance to seal those plans over Putin's map table. Russian press noted afterwards that the talks were held in a new, powerful dimension. Security cooperation was at the heart of this trip. Ahead of the visit, Russian and Burkinabe officials had quietly discussed exactly how Moscow could fill the void left by France. Moment 9. Western eyes widening. Across the Atlantic, Traore's 5-day trip to Moscow raised concern and surprise. Western media and experts saw it as clear proof that Burkina Faso was now siding with Russia. Russia is trying to build closer ties with African countries, presenting itself as a friendly partner without a colonial past in Africa. That message is catching on. For the US and France, Traore's warm welcome by Putin sent a strong warning that old partnerships were falling apart. Western power falls in shame after failed coup attempts in the Sahel, a win for Russian diplomacy over the West's longtime control. Burkina Faso had picked Moscow over Paris, and Europe was watching without any way to stop it. Moment 10. A seat at the world table. By the end of his trip, Traore ended up in a surprising group, standing beside President Mnangagwa of Zimbabwe, President Abbas of Palestine, and the presidents of Abkhazia and South Ossetia, all gathered under the Russian flag. They were called the heads of foreign delegations, honored during Victory Day. The scene was unexpected. An African army captain in uniform, standing confidently with leaders from Asia, the Middle East, and regions involved in long-running conflicts from the old Soviet Union. It showed the beginning of a new group of non-Western countries coming together in Red Square. Traore's black gloves and the red flags made it feel like the world's power map was changing. Traore's fast-moving week in Moscow will be remembered for a long time.
Full of determination, full of strength, full of courage to make his country a better place. This should be a challenge to all African presidents, because with what this guy is doing, with his mindset, with his plans on what he wants his country Burkina Faso to be, I'm telling you, in next few years, we other African countries will be looking for visa to go to Burkina Faso, because right now they are not even with ECOWAS. They have removed themselves from ECOWAS. This guy is working, and I'm so happy that Putin is solidly behind him. Guys, with this move this young man is doing, there is hope for Burkina Faso. There is hope for Africa. It's a big challenge. All African countries should emulate this very young guy. So guys, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for coming. If it's your first time coming to this channel, do us a favor by subscribing to this channel, press the notification bell so that anytime we post video, you'll be the first to know. Thank you so much once again for coming, and see you on our next video.